Welcome back to Wii U Stop. In honor of the 40th anniversary of the Nintendo Wii U, we've decided to take a look back at some of the worst games that have ever released on this console. Starting off at number 10 is New Super Luigi U. The problem with this game is it was a massive failure. In fact, it was single-handedly responsible for Nintendo losing $457 million. A lot of people point to Luigi as the culprit, but it was actually Nabbit who replaced Mario. He actually stole all of that money, and that is why this guy has never returned in another Mario game since. At number 9 is Yoshi's Woolly World. At the surface, this is a cutesy little Yoshi game. However, it's worth noting that this game has a shockingly dark history. When developing this game, Nintendo actually turned to human trafficking. All of the models were actually knitted by old ladies in nursing homes, and they were told if they didn't just shut up and knit, they wouldn't be fed ever again. In my opinion, human trafficking is pretty bad, so it doesn't matter how fun you think this game is, it is purely immoral. Next up is Mario Kart 8. This has to be the most disappointing Mario Kart game ever released. There is literally nothing original to this game. The only thing they added in was a bunch of 8s. There's an 8 item with 8 items attached to it, and every single track just has to have an 8 shaped into it. None of this makes any sense. The idea is completely ridiculous. And it makes sense that this game was put on the Switch because that's the worst console Nintendo's ever made. Here we have Rabbids Land. I personally don't think we even have to explain why this game is on this list. I mean, just look at this thing. It is obviously an abomination. Get this thing off my screen, let's move on to number 6. And at number 6 is Dr. Luigi. Again, this is a game that looks fun at the surface, but it actually has a dark history. It turns out Luigi actually lost his medical license after he dropped a vial, breaking it, and releasing a virus. This caused a global pandemic that shut down the world for many years. It's pretty obvious we will never get a Dr. Luigi game ever again because of this. And entering the top 5, we have Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. Some people say that this game is an absolute masterpiece, but what they forget is that it's an absolute ripoff. Everything in this game was already done years before in Donkey Kong Frozen Ape. I don't understand how this game could possibly be seen as creative when it's clearly quite the opposite. The only thing frozen in this game is the brain of anyone that doesn't see through the absolute scam that it is. And at number 4, we have Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. The Super Smash Bros. Series is amazing, but this game in particular is simply terrible. For one of the new fighters, they introduced Rosalina, who is objectively the worst Nintendo character ever introduced. In fact, anytime the game lagged online, it was entirely her fault, as not only does she control the cosmos, she actually controls your internet connection as well. Next up is Super Mario 3D World. This game has the exact same problem as Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Why is Rosalina playable? Even worse is that now you can play as Rosalina, but as a cat girl? I can't think of anything worse than this. Get this thing off of my screen right now. And at number 2 is Tokyo Mirage Sessions FE. This is actually one of the best games on the Wii U. That is, if you play the Japanese version. The American version is unplayable due to gross censorship. Everything that was great about this game was absolutely ruined. This has to be the biggest fumble of all time, but not as big a fumble as number 1. Because number 1, the absolute worst game ever put on the Wii U, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Why does this game suck? Because it was a launch title for the Nintendo Switch, which is objectively the absolute worst Nintendo console ever made. The Wii U is superior to the Switch by every single metric. And the fact that this game contributed to the Switch's success when the Switch is an absolute sham is a total letdown. It doesn't matter how good you say this game is or how fun the gameplay was, when the game's legacy is tarnished by its connection to being the launch title for the worst Nintendo console ever made. But that was our list for the top 10 worst Wii U games of all time. Look, the Wii U is practically a perfect console, and it's unfortunate that these 10 games each serve as tiny little blemishes on its legacy. But don't worry, because if you enjoyed this video, we'll make a sequel talking about the 10 best games on the Wii U. But with that out of the way, I'm Wii U Stop.